What if I told you that the way you're measuring your homeschool progress is actually making you feel worse about your progress? There is a simple mindset shift from a book called The Gap and the Gain that can change how you feel about your homeschool. Welcome to the Homeschool Mom Wellness and Mindset channel, where overwhelmed homeschool moms come to reclaim their voice, rediscover their spark, and lead their kids and their lives aligned from the inside out. I'm Teresa Wiedrich, graduated homeschool mom turned certified life coach, here to guide you in showing up whole, grounded, and fully you, even in the thick of homeschool life. Here we talk real stuff, the overwhelm, the guilt, the breakthroughs, and how to nurture yourself while nurturing your kids. I'm so glad you're here. You look at your homeschool day and see everything that didn't go according to plan. The math lesson fell flat, the history project that you had in mind but you still haven't started, the science experiment that turned into a moldy mess on a kitchen counter. You're constantly measuring yourself against this impossible ideal, and it's making you miserable. But what if you're looking at progress completely backwards? Authors Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy of The Gap and the Gain explain this concept perfectly in that book. Most of us live in the gap, constantly measuring where we are against where we think we should be. But successful people live in the gain. They measure backwards from where they started. In the first 4 years of our homeschool, I was trying to out-private school the private school. I knew I was capable of learning so many possible topics alongside my kids, like Latin and French and Spanish and writing and grammar and vocabulary and narration, dictation, geography, economics, science of all sorts, nature study, fine arts history, these and every other subject under the sun. And I scheduled them all in my homeschool mom day timer. They were color-coded. I had a color-coded section for each of my 4 kids. I'd studied Charlotte Mason and classical education. I had a boxed curriculum, and I studied the teacher's plan. I scheduled our days to 15-minute increments most days. Then I attempted to task switch for a 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and 3-year-old, and somehow I believe the 8-month-old would just come along for the journey. Since I wasn't a conventionally trained teacher, I was actually a perinatal registered nurse, married to a medical physician. I didn't know our province's sequence of learning for various grades. I was new to the province. I moved from Alberta to British Columbia. What does a 7-year-old need to know before they're 8? Perhaps it would benefit me to know. So I looked it up online. What were the provincial learning outcomes? Wowzas, pages and pages of detailed expectations for each grade. And instantly I thought, there is no way I can do all this. How would I ever achieve all of that? I thought I was successful in my efforts of out-private schooling the private school. But then looking at the provincial learning outcomes. I saw where one kid wasn't on track in math, another behind in spelling, and of course I believed the lie that every conventional teacher was somehow accomplishing all these things for 25 to 30 kids all at once. I was convinced we were behind. I was living in the gap, comparing our reality to my idealized vision of where we should be. But then I stumbled across my kiddos' written work. My daughter, who had no interest in spelling, loved writing her charming stories. She loved playing with words and making words up. She still does. She loved playing bananagrams. My daughter, who used to push back every time I brought out the math workbooks, was beginning to listen to me explain a math problem, whereas last year she didn't even want to sit down to do it with me. All that growth was right there, but I'd been so focused on what we weren't doing and what we weren't achieving that I missed celebrating what we were. Here's how the gain changes things. Instead of thinking, we only got through half our lesson plan today, we had an amazing history discussion that showed critical thinking in the minivan on the way to soccer practice. Instead of thinking, my child can't do long division perfectly, my child went from being afraid of math to tackling multi-step problems. Instead of we're behind the public school curriculum, my child is learning at their own pace. and actually understanding it. And that is one of the reasons that compelled me to home educate anyway. Another quick story. One of our girls had zero interest in history. She didn't want to learn about it, read about it, or even watch a movie with historical themes. My first instinct was, well, I should just make her do it. And sure, sometimes as parents, we do decide that certain subjects are non-negotiable. But I'd already learned an important lesson. What we insist on has to be chosen carefully and judiciously. Some kids can absorb huge amounts of information without resistance. Others don't have that same bandwidth. So when it comes to those must-learn, I realized I needed to pick those battles wisely. If I truly want my child's attention, I need to be intentional about when and where I ask for it. Overall, though, my approach, attempting to out-private school the private school, my homeschool, 8 to 4, with an hour break, maybe, was just too much for my 8 and 6-year-olds. FYI, it was also too much for me. And don't get me started on my attempt at juggling homeschooling with those two and a breastfeeding baby and a busy preschooler too. We were behind on my timeline, or so I believed at the time. Then I realized over the course of time that this deep understanding was worth far more than a checked box on a lesson plan. My kids were learning, not on the provincial learning outcome timelines necessarily, but they were learning meaningfully, deeply, and with great applicability to the world around them, just as I'd originally hoped for my homeschool intentions. So how do you live in the gain? Here are 3 simple practices you can incorporate. One is to remind yourself of your weekly wins. Every Friday, write down 3 things each kiddo's learned or improved on that week. Not what they didn't finish, but what they gained. Another thing is to record progress pictures, photos, or keep work samples on your phone. Look back 3 months later and you'll be amazed at how much growth felt invisible in the moment. This I found to be one of the most useful reasons to record what we've been doing. It's to be able to look back and say, yeah, there's progress. And if you're recording your family's activities on Instagram, you can go back years. I can, on my account, Homeschool Life Coach, to see what we were doing. Focus on what you are doing, not on what you haven't been doing. The third simple practice is this. Keep a simple journal of those moments, the funny questions the kids ask, maybe conversations that you have, breakthrough discussions, moments where you're like, wow, it happened. She finally learned to ... These stories are your evidence of real progress. I've created a free quiz that helps you identify your homeschool progress. You'll find it in the description. It only takes 5 minutes. And definitely check out the gap in the gain. It's not written specifically for homeschoolers, but it will absolutely transform how you see your progress in every area of your homeschool and your life. So remember, your homeschool journey is unique, and so is your progress. So stop measuring against imaginary timelines, unrealistic expectations, and start celebrating the gains happening right in front of you. You're doing better than you think. If you found this video encouraging, would you consider sharing it with another homeschool mom who might too? And until next week, I hope you and your kids have a charmed week. But if you have those challenges this week, remember you can transform those challenges into charms. Just recognize the progress that you're making. You got this, girlfriend.